Start streaming.
Surprise, surprise, surprise.
Tony Caravan. You've been subjected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need, and not what you don't.
Funky, 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 funky.
Seem to be caught in a loop there.
Wait, here comes a brother I know for sure can rap.
Yeah, that's right. I'm here. Good morning, folks.
Good morning.
Okay.
Yeah, she always says that. Anyway.
Really funny. Really funny.
That's so funny I forgot to laugh. So funny I forgot to laugh. I can't even find my stuff. And away we go. Into the wild blue yonder. Used to be a band in Australia. Sandy Stewart co-wrote a song with Stevie Nicks. She was supposed to work on a film I was making down there, and she was in a band called Blue Yonder. You could find out a song. She had a song called Sweet Talk that I was going to put in the movie, and for the life of me, I've never been able to find that song. It was like one of the best songs ever. The lead character in my film sang it like right towards the end of the picture. It was like the second to the last. The last song was like the big one. You know, it was a music film. Way ahead of its time. Do you ever feel like you got something in your eye, you know you're never going to get it out? So you don't even try. That's how I am right now. I want to, right? Ooh, that's scary. That actually might have helped a little bit. I've noticed that the lava lamp is getting less and less and less lengthy in its lava lamping. So, I'm trying to get comfortable. You know, the game over thing. See, the thing, I just shrink this game over thing because it's, you know, I guess the point gets across. It's always in the way of my head. You don't know what you don't know. Freedom is fun. I guess we could reduce a lot of these things. You know, the point is across. I'm assuming you're watching this on the big screen, right? The big TV screen. It's the only way to watch the internet. And yes, Tattoo, I did get that video, Internet is Dead. And you're right. It's like the title of my show today, which is basically
ROCKFLUX Live.
With none other than the master's voice. And it's ROCKFLUX Live 10/11/21. Nobody's watching, really, is the title of the show. And such is the truth. You know, people watch it later on. The title card is This Is Where We Begin. Right? Where do I begin? This love story is blah. Remember punk rock? I was talking to somebody the other day, you know, there's different kinds of punk rock. And speaking of Tattoo Rooney, which, you know, sorry, man, for using you as content today, but I have to. That video you posted, like, I don't know, several days ago, where you had that, like, punk guy. It was just a 60-second thing. And it was about, you know, it was the title was, like, what he was singing. Well, it was, like, a different, I forget, man, because my mind's jello. You know, really. I mean, I'm losing it.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I'm losing it. It's true. But, you know, there was like two kinds of punk rock. You know, there was like that real crazy punk rock, you know, that was like just out of control. Mosh pit, you know, a real screaming. And then there was like the controlled scream, right? Like that thing you posted. And that was like I like that punk a little bit more so than the other stuff, personally. I had 2 prunes as usual for breakfast, and I'm drinking coffee. So the question is, I don't have an awful lot of coffee today. I just hope I don't have to interrupt this broadcast to take a bathroom break. Hot coffee. This graphic is something I've made many years ago, probably about 7 years ago. At least 7 years ago. Meanwhile, in a small town American bowling alley, one guy says, holding his beer, "I don't follow politics anymore. It's all bull." The other guy, who's pouring a beer in his glass, says, "Yeah, I'd rather have a beer and bowl than watch the news." And down at the bottom, off screen, "Living well is the best revenge." And then the other announcer says, "More and more people are making the choice and switching off the news in favor of just having fun." ROCKFLUX.com. I was putting these cartoons in one of these magazines I was publishing. That's like a Tony Caribbean original. I used to do that kind of stuff. I've been doing this stuff for so long. I've been like preaching this, whole idea like this internet is dead and there is nothing, and music is dead. Pop music is dead, and, everything's dead. When politics became pop culture, and I'm not going to harp on that today, so hang in there. But when politics became pop culture, you knew pop culture was dead. You knew, when I say pop culture, you knew pop music, pop art, right? Just that everything to do with culture of any kind, in the higher culture, the finer arts, so to speak. Well, man, they've been dead for a long time. Like I said, the majority of art these days, what's being paid for and getting exhibited is furniture. Artists are getting commissioned for colors that match a person's apartment. Can you do that in mauve? My client will pay you, $80,000 if you could do that in mauve for her condo in Lauderdale. Who the hell would want a condo in Lauderdale? My chair feels like it fell down. And it did. I was thinking what life might be like this morning as I got up. It's 3:55 a.m. 3:55. Think about that. I got up at like it was before 2 o'clock, 2 a.m. People haven't even, I in the old days, I wouldn't have even gotten out of the bars yet. Isn't that crazy? But, it's a whole different thing now. Yeah. Average watch time, 5 seconds. Concurrent viewers, 0. So I reckon, excuse me, pardon me, the weekend's over, but this is Indigenous Peoples Day, which is kind of an insult to indigenous people, because it's like how, I'm sure they could drag out some indigenous person, and they will, of some indigenous place somewhere. I mean, we're all kind of indigenous people on this planet, right? One of the here's an absurd thing about this goes to show, I get on this tangent. This is a really funny thing. I don't watch any of the mainstream media, especially CNN or any of those shows or CBS and stuff. But I know some of you folks do. And if you do watch this, by the time you are watching this, you will have seen. So this is a prediction. So they inevitably will be pushing this Indigenous Day thing. Now, what's funny about that, particularly in the Americas, okay, particularly North America, what we call Native Americans, right, to be politically correct, instead of Indians, which most Indians call themselves Indians, even though we all know the whole term is ridiculous and, bizarre. Right. But, a thing is a thing after, you have a thing for 400 or 500 years and it sticks, See, you don't go changing a thing because passing fancy, as like Cole Porter would have sang in Our Love Is Here to Stay. The television or something, the radio and blah, blah, blah. Maybe passing fancies, but our love is here to stay. Well, anyway, what's funny about this, and what you'll see today on some white guy talking about some indigenous people, is that the so-called indigenous people didn't feel they owned the land. Okay, they just, in other words, the earth was the earth, Mother Earth, people today call it Gaia. But I mean, the whole idea was it was like Mother Earth. And so, people migrated, with the weather, hunting, seasons, for all sorts of reasons. But people lived on the land, and lived on various other, and they had favorite spots and certain hunting spots and, different areas that they knew from, history of their people and passed down from chieftains or shamans, whatever, that, this was a good place for, to settle here during this time of year. This is where you could find, good planting, good herbs, medicinal herbs, etc. are here. There's water, fresh, clean water. No one's gotten sick from it. But the idea was that they didn't feel they owned the land. That's the whole big joke about Manhattan, that ridiculous story about Manhattan being sold for like a couple of blankets or something. You know what I mean? That whole story, that ended up having like what, a disease on it and stuff. But apart from that, so calling it Indigenous Peoples Day on a day that was traditionally put in by basically discovery by, the glorified king of the conquistadors, more or less, right? I mean, Columbus was a kind of the lowest form of life, there is, right? I mean, this is, there's not much of a difference between Genghis Khan and Christopher Columbus, and anyone who wants to say anything better. And we've also found out from old existing maps that predate Columbus that Columbus was just privy to the old map makers and the old maps. There was no mystery, right, that there was a continent over here. And contact had been made, which again has been proven both archaeologically and now through actually physical evidence and through and through multiple maps. And the common histories of people and, all that kind of stuff. That among the intelligentsia, of the time. Because people like to think everybody was a moron, until 1960 or something. I don't, that's how people are today, right? There's probably these people out in the street with cardboard signs, protesters types, that think that like before the internet, everyone was a freaking moron or something, right? They have no idea, right? How that we built suspension bridges and, the national highway system and put a man to the moon. That's what the whole flat earth thing is about. These people can't believe that people before their time, because most of them are like real young, that push that stupid idiocy. They just can't believe that we were intelligent enough. They don't understand that we created the internet, which now is dead, which we'll get into too. But anyway, getting back to this indigenous thing. So it's all about a land grab. It's about conquest and taking over land. And it's basically property, people that feel that they own property, the value of property, countries and drawing lines on a map that separate, one place from another, though you can just walk there and there's no line, right? Between the U.S. and Canada, there's no line, but there is on a map, right? But anyway, so the indigenous people don't even believe in that stuff and never did. So you're trying to ascribe certain belief systems and you're creating a day and saying, this is Indigenous Peoples Day. Like, why? Just because they existed? Because they live? Like that movie, They Live? I mean, this microphone. I don't know if that makes much sense. It is kind of vague the way I presented it, but I think you kind of get what I'm getting at. It's like conquistador versus just people. We're all indigenous people on the planet Earth, technically. And whatever creations that these various governments, societies, cultures, civilizations, empires, whatever you want to call them, have created over the millennia, that has nothing to do with anything. Okay? Those are just passing fancies, like the internet. Right? It's just somebody saying something. And so by you now calling it Indigenous Peoples Day, what does that mean? Aren't we all indigenous people? Right? We're all indigenous people. See, when do you draw the line, when you go back? That's what nobody ever talks about. In other words, I was born here. My father was born here. And my grandmother on my mother's side was born here. We believe. We don't know. Her and her sister were found in an orphanage in the year her birthday was 1900. Okay. My grandfather, anyway, but that's all this genealogy nonsense. What I'm trying to say is that, so who is indigenous? So you're saying pre-Columbian. Okay. Is that what you're trying to get at? But like Columbus didn't discover North America. Anyway. So are you talking about the Pilgrims, the Brits? We didn't arrive at Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock was, landed on us. We didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on our heads, or whatever that line from Malcolm X was. I'm saying, how far back do you go? They have theories of, how people migrated from Asia into the Americas, and then that's been, that contradicted. And the point is, at some point, people just existed. All right, there's still no answer to that. It's an open question. By the way, I've got the. See if I can do this without causing too much damage. You don't know what you don't know t-shirt. This is the premium version. This is a very comfortable shirt. I highly recommend you get it. All right. It's available in all sizes, up to 4X with an extra 4 inches of show down the bottom for the belly. Small and extra small, and we could go look at those if we want to, because I know we did yesterday at one point. So that's all I'm trying to say is like when is a person indigenous, right? So I know what they're trying. Some people will say, well, 13,000 years. Or something weird like that. Like, like Aboriginals. What is it, 13, 16,000 years, they say, something. But some people say longer, whatever. Personally, I believe, humans go back way more than the contemporary idea of in the hundreds of thousands, but like a couple of million years. I think civilizations have risen and fallen. I think the remnants of indigenous people here in the Americas are leftovers from civilizations that were wiped out in previous cataclysms, such as the one that we're, going to be experiencing if we live long. Those of us who live long enough will be experiencing this solar one, near extinction experience, extinction event. And when that happens, that's it. Those who survive, will randomly have been close to a cave. And I guess there'll be new petroglyphs that people 12,000 years from now will look at. And then the whole thing gets erased again. In a big, grand, monotonous cycle of life. And like every 6,000 years, there's like a Noah's flood or something. I think that's the ongoing theory right now. Check out Ben Davidson, Suspicious Observers. Watch some of his videos. Watch his catastrophe videos. And of course, Doug Vogt is the guy who deserves like a lot of the credit for this. So you could check out the Diehold Foundation YouTube channel, and you could find out some information on a lot of like his story. He gets into this biblical thing. He calls it the Diehold, as if the universe is, some kind of computer thing, and that was it Abraham or went into a cave and found this like ancient computer or something. I think Abraham. I don't think it was Moses. Moses was the guy who was tied in. Was the Egyptian? Was basically the tied in with the Egyptians. And that's a whole other thing. Trying to take so-called biblical, biblical and then other cultures' equivalents of what we call biblical, Judeo-Christian type of biblical versus, Vedas, and Eastern religions or myths and all this stuff. And then trying to like collate through all of these scrolls and, and all this stuff passed down and try to like put together some sort of history. It's like I've said before. there are more myths and religious stories, like the more scrolls and passed down things that are considered by the so-called mainstream to be mythology or religious beliefs. Buildings that are, whenever they find a building, they say it was some kind of temple, right? As if it's like, that's all people did in the old days was like worship, Every time, they were temples or tombs, right? People didn't do anything else but build temples and tombs, right? And it's just that, the only thing that remains after a cataclysm is stone. So anyway, as far as Indigenous Peoples Day is, yeah, that's fine if you want to call it that. If you want to make it a bank holiday. Though it's 24-hour banking, I got a notice that they deducted some money out of my bank for some internet fee today. So they're not paying any attention to Indigenous Peoples Day. But the whole thing is farcical. When is a person indigenous? Right? When is an American type of idea too? Like that always cracks me up. Yeah, I guess some people who live here, on this geographic location, the former United States, that don't consider themselves anything. And they're usually someone that has some kind of British background, right? The original colonial types, But everyone else is a hyphenate, You're a Polish American, Italian American, French American, German American, Lithuanian American. You know what I mean? You're not an American when there was an America. Right? But have you ever heard anybody say, oh, it's a British American? You never heard that term. They don't do it. Because they think they're like, And what's really funny is, that the show that how they demonstrate these are the power brokers is that like on an Indigenous Peoples Day, most of the whole slave trade, is basically the British and the Dutch. In fact, they even teamed up at one point, and they teamed up with Africans and with some of these Muslim slave traders back in those days. But that they were the people. They never get pointed to when they talk about all those reparations and slavery and all that kind of stuff. But it was the Brits. Because the European immigrants that get the rap and get pointed at, they didn't really come till 30 years after the Civil War, more or less. The Great Migration from Europe didn't happen until around the turn of the last century. Give or take around 1900, but say 20 years or, 15, 20 years either way. That's when you had the great influx of people. Prior to that, during the Civil War, there was like 40-some thousand people in the United States, 40,000 people. And by the 1920s, there was like 120 or 100,000 or so. So the population between that period of time, increased by like 50, 60,000 people, or 50, 60 million. I'm sorry, I'm talking millions. 40 million people, 30, 40 million people, Civil War, including slaves. There were only like 4 million slaves, I think, technically, if there were that many. 4 million. And there was only 30-some million, mainly Brits, Dutch, Brits, whatever. Frenchmen, Spaniards. But I mean, mainly the British. This is a British colony. Colonies. The king ruled this place. July 4th is Independence from England Day. People don't even know that kind of stuff. And so, and yet they never point that, So why didn't you go after July? July 4th should be like, I don't know. The Brits get a pass all the time. But this cartoon I have up really is where my head's at. And just goes to show you what's so cool about it is it shows you that my head's been there, for so long. I cannot get comfortable. I had some shredded wheat for breakfast. I should have slept another hour. I'm just about out of coffee. It's probably going to be warm and then eventually cold. And yeah. But anyway, I don't know if that made any sense to you, but the whole idea is preposterous. I think holidays in general are ridiculous. I think they're over, holidays of what we call national type holidays, not religious or cultural holidays. That's a different story. People have the right to, do this and whatever. Whatever you're culturally. But this idea of Columbus Day to begin with, and it's what's really funny is like DC is the District of Columbia. Columbia means is Columbus. So, they talk about like changing, like taking statues down and different things like that. It's like, okay, so you're going to take the nation's capital. What are you going to call it? Just D? Like a rapper? Like, where's my thing? Where's that thing? I can never find anything anymore.
Wait, here comes a brother I know for sure can rap.
Hey, D. Is that what you're going to call it? D? I live in D. Because you got to take the C out of it. Because that's Columbus. Right? Columbus, Ohio. Do you know how many Columbuses there are? Right? District of Columbia. That's what it stands for. DC. Yeah. It's like politicians, news media, people that do all these kinds of weird things. It's like, all it is a story. And it fits their story, and they weave something. It's like the classic con artist. This freaking thing, man. It's only been a couple of weeks that this has been happening. But it's like they weave these stories and they present it like in a classic con artist fashion. In other words, you build a foundation, backstory. All right. And before a person has a chance to question the backstory, then you start adding on these things, and then you suddenly make the conclusion, and the person is like, oh, wow, yeah. But the idea is the premise. Most of what you know, that's why I have everything you know is wrong. And you don't know what you don't know. Is the idea that everything, the problem is the premise is based on falsehoods to begin with. Most premises that the media, puts out there, they're not, the foundation is not sound, because they don't know history, right? And even if they knew history, what I was trying to say is none of us really even know real history beyond the last extinction event, which was, prior to like Younger Dryas, like 12,000 years ago. So none of this crap matters, Which makes you wonder, like when they talk about even the Aboriginals down in Australia. I recall hearing the word 13,000 years and stuff like that, 13 or 16,000 years. And I'm going, wait a second. But the last, cataclysm was like between 10,600 and 12,000 years. So where were they hide? Under Ayers Rock or in some caves? Maybe. I don't know. It'd be interesting to talk and say, well, where were you? Because everybody else on the planet was practically dead. And we all don't have features, aboriginal features. If we all had clearly aboriginal features, and in 12,000 years, the set of the face doesn't change that much, right? So, and skin tone and all that kind of stuff, right? Pigmentation and stuff. It takes longer. Yeah, I can't believe it. The coffee's like warm, like lukewarm. So that's that. I just thought I'd get that out of the way. On this Indigenous Peoples Day, Columbus Day, shows up both on like my calendars, whatever, automatic calendars. But either way, it's hogwash, It's meaningless. It's bull, like the cartoon here. I don't even care about it. I just brought it up because I thought it's a prime example of the ridiculousness of, how little people know, how things get turned into things, and then people get arguing and protest over something that they don't even really know the truth about to begin with. And that the people themselves don't really consider themselves owners of the land. So what are you really talking about? Yeah, really weird. So, I don't know.
Did you accidentally inject yourself with some kind of psychotropic agent?
I know people think of it that way, but it's not.
The Weather Watch forecast.
All right, so let's look here. 4:24 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Former United States. Here's what it looks like, or looked like about an hour or so ago. And it's still dark out there. And as you can see, we've got some clouds in the midsection. Got a little swirly thing up in Canada above the Great Lakes. Pennsylvania's looking clear. The East Coast is looking fairly clear. You've got clouds there, but I mean, they almost look like they call those, they noctilucent clouds or some kind of weird like that, but that's not really what they are. And, out in the Atlantic, there's some stuff going on, but nothing that's really, it might provide for some colorful sunrises in some parts. Out west, you've got some northwest, you've got some clouds heading towards the plains. But generally speaking, there's really, there's not a whole hell of a lot going on. The big thing is that volcano, which is still going, going pretty strong. So that's what it looks like in the former United States. In my neck of the woods, it's 63 degrees outside of my studio. The sunrise is here at 7:22, so I'm almost 2 hours away from, actually 3 hours away from sunrise. Man, is it early. Holy. No wonder my days last forever. I'm going to have to go back to bed. But according to the temperature here, they're not predicting any chance of thunderstorms till Friday, till the weekend. So it's going to be in the low 70s, high 60s, and pretty much the 50-ish at night. But like I say, next weekend we might see some low 70s and rain, and at night it'll still be in the 60s. So we're having a pretty good time of it, So that's your
The Weather Watch forecast.
And I'm back. Here's the face. So again, today's title card, this is where we begin. This is where we begin. And nothing could be truer than this cartoon I made. Nothing could be truer. When was the last time you went bowling? Right? I mean, it's an odd game. I haven't gone bowling in years, but I'd like to. It's like pinball machines. I haven't played a pinball machine in years, but I'd love to. Way more than video games, Something about it, the kinetic, aspect of it, and the analog wiring of all the lights, and the bells and the bumpers, and the kinetic energy of the flippers and stuff, and the boom, 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 Yeah. And bowling's the same way. It's a kinetic game, right? You throw that ball, knock down the pins, and this like analog type of thing, So I'm sure today they've got digital readouts on the bowling alley. Who knows what, Living well is the best revenge. More and more people are making the choice and switching off the news in favor of just having fun. Would that were true. It's not, though. But some of us are like these guys, I don't follow, follow politics. Now, speaking of which, here's the news. So look at the absurdity of this. So you got a bunch of dumbcoffs. Taliban says U.S. will provide aid but not recognition after Doha talks or whatever. Who gives it? Right? FBI sting operation finds a couple trying to sell nuclear secrets. That's the stuff people have got to worry about. All right? Afghanistan. U.S. and Taliban discuss aid in first direct talks since U.S. exit. What U.S. exit? You mean Biden letting like some 20-year-olds in the West Wing like do some kind of thing? Or whatever. I mean, people who don't know what the hell they were doing mess around with socioeconomic geopolitics and totally destroy it. Photo, Taliban force heroin addicts into grim rehab in Afghanistan. That's a fake story. That's fake news. Afghanistan is the number one producer of heroin in the world. Okay? So all the Taliban has to do is burn down the poppy fields, and that ends the frickin' heroin trade. All right? Ends it. All right? They won't. Trust me. And that's why the U.S. is providing not humanitarian aid, U.S. through Big Pharma is providing aid to the Taliban to not destroy the poppy fields. You heard that first here. Now let's look at something else here. I'm going to do this. Well, I don't know. Maybe you can see it. Look at the goofy guy with the beard and the frickin' hat and a weird scarf, on at the far right-hand side of the screen in the second story down. And then a couple other fruitcakes sitting on some truck, right? Playing. It's like we've got these medieval people living in medieval times, driving trucks. with like modern weaponry and shit. You know, it's absurd. There's like a line in some Elton John song, and it's getting more and more absurd. I forget what song that was. You know, some crazy thing. Meanwhile, the sun's going to explode sometime in the next 20 years. Could be tomorrow. Yeah, so pretty crazy. Well, let's get into, this is where we begin. First of all, rid of the title card. As we've been doing with these daily features, here is another album that you may or may not be aware of. You know, and you notice Ritz Crackers gets a freebie ad on this album cover. It's pretty funny, which is weird. Which, by the way, I saw something like in Europe they don't allow Ritz Crackers because of some ingredient or something, or I don't know if it was a GMO-y thing or something weird like that. But anyway, Hall & Oates, Bigger Than Both of Us. Now, this is an album that a lot of people simply don't know. And I don't know if you can tell all those so-called apartment buildings or whatever they are have VU meters on it like that. It's like a record, like they're inside of. It's almost made to look like they're apartment buildings, but if you look closely, they're knobs and they're tapes, and so they're like sitting inside of a old-fashioned analog recording studio. And, you know, with some kind of computer thing in front of them, which is interesting for the time. Because this album would have been, this album is set late 70s, something like that. So that so-called computer device there, that did not exist at that time. I mean, it almost looks like an Apple, something that came along like 20 years later. Not weird? That's really weird. Yeah. But all that put aside, and yeah, it's, you know, I'm realizing more and more how early it is in the morning. My voice is just does not exist right now. So, and if there's any of you imbeciles out there that actually believe that I like stay up all night or something, it's like, no, I literally got up at like 1:32. So anyway, yeah, Hall & Oates, Bigger Than Both of Us. There's some pop stuff on there. It's when they were starting to move into pop vein, but they still were authentic enough that there's a couple of classic songs on there. Classic Hall & Oates songs. You know, and this is just feeding into where MTV was about to break. And then Hall & Oates went through that stage where they had some, you know, schlock rock, right? Because everybody had schlock rock when MTV started. Because of the music videos, a lot of the songs were like, some of the songs were put together, excuse me, almost for video. It was like a combination thing, you know. You know, it was part, you know, you had the video in mind when you're, you know, recording the song, putting the song together, creating it. I'm sorry for all that and the weird noise, but what are you going to do? You know, what are you going to do? You either don't do the show or you clear your throat 16,000 times. So anyway, so that's that. Weird. Strange cover. But anyway, worth checking out. Listen to it sometime. Like I said, it's not 100%, but it's an album I could listen to. It's just that not every song's going to blow you away, but there's some classic Hall & Oates on there. And it was like a transition album from, and you remember, I mean, the beginnings, Hall & Oates, like, the first real song, like Fall in Philadelphia, that was from like Whole Oates album, like where they actually had a Quaker Oats type of thing on the cover. If you've ever seen that one. Anyway, that's your music thing, So this is where we begin. And who knows, maybe this is where we end. I don't know. I think I might keep that up for a little while, just for the hell of it.
The only station that matters.
So, I was thinking about this. So, continuing towards the end of yesterday's show, and I put some stuff up on Locals yesterday. I tried to get it to a point where, and I don't know if it really works or not, because it's complicated. I mean, hats off to Ruben for setting that whole thing up and whatever his tech team that did it. But, if you're watching this on Locals, it's just that what I'm talking about. There's a complexity to that site that they really need to dig in and like try to deconstruct a little bit. My face still has a little bit of a stubble on it, but it's a controlled stubble for you guys out there. Nose clean. Basically, neck clean. No turtle thing going on. How does he do it? How does he do it? The many looks of me, But anyway, where was I? Talking about towards the end of yesterday's show. When I was getting into this internet thing, and I started this show because I was talking about a video that was sent to me by Tattoo about how the internet is dead, is fake. And the gist of that video, which you could find, I guess you got to do a deep search for it. I don't. See, I have a CPU problem. All right. And for some reason, it's jumping up a little bit right now. But I would have to open up But the problem is I'm on YouTube on Chrome because Safari, even though I'm on a Mac, Safari will not allow me to use YouTube Studio, as far as I know, unless they've updated it in a certain way or something. But I've been having problems with it. And certainly with this open source program that allows me to do all these wild and wonderful things. So in order to go and find that video that I was talking about, which let me try it. We'll see what happens. I'm going to open up Safari browser and then just look at my history. Oh, CPU just shot up to 9, 10. See, this is where I could end up crashing. History. Okay, the internet dead theory, YouTube. The dead internet theory all time. Okay? I got to quit out of this real quick because my thing. So if you want to look this up, I'll put it in the thing. The internet dead theory. And it was like all time was the name of the, I'll put that in the chat. All right, that's where that came from. Now I'm back down. See, I have to watch it. My CPU, they really, I don't know what the deal is, but, there's certain things that I just can't do and they don't want you doing. And there's no logical explanation for it because it's not like I was like taxing something. I have 16 gigabytes of what we used to call RAM. 16 gigs of RAM. And I used to do like video editing and, with like literally like megabytes of RAM. Like, maybe a quarter. To be honest, about 250 to maybe a half gig. At one time, I had about a half gig of RAM in my G5, which is over here, which is the one that I make this stuff on.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
The only station that matters.
Half a gigabyte of RAM. Same programs. You know what I mean? Full screen, video. Like I say, I've done a music video that would, for MTV. I've done TV commercials back in the late 90s. They were on television, So, the whole idea is that, you can't say, oh, yeah, but, it's like 1920, 10 by 8, 1080 by such and such, or 1920p. It's like, get lost. Get lost. It's video. All right? I'm not talking about 4K. And I wasn't opening a 4K video. I was actually just opening a freaking browser. Number one. Okay? People. I always have to throw off people's arguments because I know what goes on in people's heads. Everyone's always got some kind of thing they want to throw at you. It's like, no, man. I'm talking about opening up a freaking browser. All right. Not even playing a video. HTML. All right. Pulling some, server side things or whatever. All right. And I've got 16 gigabytes. They call it DRAM or DRAM or whatever it's called. The point of the matter is it's RAM. It's still RAM. I have a solid state terabyte solid state drive on here. On top of another terabyte. I have 2 terabyte drives. 16 gigs and like a dual quad processor or something like that. No. And this thing won't run the latest. They won't let me put the latest version of the Apple operating system on it. Because the computer's too old. They want me to buy a new computer. It has nothing to do with computing power. It's like I said before. It's bloatware. It's bullshit, man. And that's why the internet really is dead. And so what I was trying to talk about, and it was towards the end of the show, but I thought I would dedicate a little bit more of this show to it. So, this thing you're seeing right here, there, where my thumb is. Let's get rid of that, okay? I think you get the idea, because politics is dead. And that's what this really has to do with, the idea that all the things that are dead All right? You know? And besides, this show is
Quality, quantity, and variety.
ROCKFLUX.
Let's get this show on the road.
Yeah, let's get it on the road. And don't forget my book. Me book. And there's a copy. You can see one on the wall. This is what it looks like in real life. There's a stack of them back here. Behind there's Codex, my previous book. Get them both. And by the way, like I said before, let's put this down. You don't know what you don't know. You see, you look at the top of the screen. And that type is on this shirt. And this is the premium shirt. Cost a couple bucks more than just the cheapest one. But this is the one that's available in all sizes and is the most comfortable shirt in the world. And I don't care what your size is. Small, medium, 4X. This proportionately has everything, and it just feels, the way it feels against your skin, it's like one of the most comfortable shirts you can imagine. Not the Hawaiian shirt, which is also comfortable, and I've had this shirt for a long time. So I was going to spend some time this morning before I got on the air. And then I even thought I was going to actually try drawing and creating this thing on air. And I haven't really tested that out yet, but it was the idea that I was going to open a program and I was going to create this pyramid of power. All right. But I think I'll do that separately. You know. I don't know why. I'm a little out of breath today, too, which is ridiculous. There's no reason to, because I did walk twice this week. So it's probably because I'm just like clogged up. Or I just needed another hour of sleep. And I've got a meeting with somebody today, which I don't know when it's going to be, but I think it's sometime this morning, but not first thing, but like, you know, probably right at the moment where I decide to take a nap. I'm trying to fix this freaking thing. The person will say, "Hey, is it okay if I come over now?" Sure, why not? Let's go through this thing, whatever. So, how could someone be so bright and cheery and semi-normal at 4:49 a.m.? Not weird? Right? So people look like in the daytime. It's nighttime. It's the middle of the night. It's as dark as the night's going to get. Actually, the temperature will probably drop a few degrees, you know, because it's like still 2.5 hours till sunrise. That's how early it is. All right, CPU's back down to 6.8, fluctuating up to 7. 30 frames per second. Pretty good upload. Excellent connection according to the stats, analytics, as they call it. And here I am. Okay, so we're talking about the pyramid of power, right? Now, I'm not the first person to probably put those words together. You know, there's probably these people that have put a pyramid of power together that have dealt with things like the Illuminati, right? You know, forget that, you know. You know, because that's bull, too. And I think I've talked about that before, you know. So, you know, I could well have been in the Illuminati. I chose not to finish. It's a matter of going through certain portals and studies and, you know, you can do it. You know, it's like the Knights Templar. All right. It's a gold coin. Knights Templar. I won't even try to begin to explain that to you. But that's not the pyramid power that I'm talking about. And I'm also not talking about some pyramid power where you go inside a pyramid, you know, and things don't rot or you get healed, right? Or the idea that the reason that a milk carton is shaped like a pyramid at the top is it keeps the milk fresher. Did you ever hear that one? So I'm not talking about Illuminati pyramid power structure of like the old world order, but people call it the new world order, but they mean the old world order. I'm not talking about pyramid power, about sitting in, that granite box in the Great Pyramid, or any of that kind of stuff. No. I'm more talking like pyramid power in terms of like how they have the food pyramid, all right? Just because we use the pyramid structure as like kind of a hierarchical thing. It's a common human geometric, structure. Construct is a better word. Okay. Right? Geometry. It's part of the way we think and visualize and conceive things geometrically. Right? It's like those people who go on these DMT trips and stuff like that. And it's geometric shapes and all this kind of weird stuff. All right. Well, I'm not talking about any of that. But I'm using this convention, all right, for a mental construct for you to understand the current power structure on the planet Earth, all right? And before I go any further, and none of this really, really matters because we don't last that long, and we're at the end of a period of time of our existence. We're like 20 some years away from like not even being around anymore. Right? Which is like impossible for people to fathom. Like people are like, what are you talking about? And I'm crashing tire-wise. Damn. It's just that I couldn't get back to sleep. Ice cold coffee. Ice cold. Colder than room temperature. And it's gone now. So, the structure that I started to talk about yesterday at the end of the video, and you could fast forward or watch yesterday's video. Yesterday's video is kind of weird. You can go to what I was saying about locals before, too. I want to finish that thought. I think I set up a thing where you can give me a tip. You tip a coin. Like everybody should join locals. It's free to join locals. And then you could be a member of my community, so to speak. TonyCaravanLive.locals.com. And if it's another way where you can share, or help support the program. And the thing about it is, you can you can, but I can upload videos there as well. And they do have a live thing too, which I haven't tested out. But I intend to figure it out. And that's what I was trying to say before for you locals people, if for some reason some local tech is watching this. It's like you need to streamline that a little bit. It's like you did create. Take this from a coder from 25 years ago, all right, or longer. It's like it's a fantastic. It's a really great job, and it works really well. Locals is a major accomplishment. Compared to even a lot of the other stuff that's come along. I mean, it's impressive as hell. hats off to Ruben and his team, But the tech guys is like, what I'm talking about. There's like, you have that thing doing just about it. It's possible that thing could do just about everything. But the problem is is like finding it all and setting everything up. And it's like, you really have to spend a lot of time. Now, I don't know if that's intentional, to make it intentionally difficult so that, that the common person, it wouldn't be that easy to set up. Maybe that's part of it. I don't know. All I know is that I could see myself spending, and I know a lot about, these kinds of things, that I could see myself spending, a lot more time mastering that thing, So I don't know. That's just a little point of curiosity. But for those who aren't on locals.com, you could find a link to my site down below in the description, more info. You can go there, you should sign up, and then you should join my community, and it won't cost you anything. But once you're on there, it is possible that you could, if you wanted to, you could support this site, or support this webcast, podcast, whatever you want to call it, vlog, and my work. And if for any reason I vanished from this platform, then you would know you can have me bookmarked and I will be on Locals and we'll just continue the show exactly the way it is right now. It'll just be somewhere else. And this gets back to that internet being dead type of thing, is that, what's going on right now, one of the reasons why there's nobody watching my show, apart from it being 5 o'clock in the morning, is that, though there's billions of people awake around the world who have access to YouTube, this is being suppressed, is that this is what the internet used to be. So not necessarily just people like me talking, there weren't many of us doing that in the old days. But everyone had their own website. It was like their channel, their radio channel, their little channel. And their channel was kind of text-based and photo-based once people knew how to use, GIF files and JPEG files and all that kind of stuff. And I reiterate, GIF, not GIF. Okay? All right? GIF is a peanut butter. GIF is a hard G-I-F. It's a file format. Graphical interface file. Okay? It's like the GUI. It's a graphical user interface. But anyway, right. So, yeah, so the internet in that regard is dead, because what happened was that's how Twitter and Facebook and Google and YouTube, became, big tech became big tech. Because what they did was, you used to have communities. I mean, you had Yahoo, all right? You had MySpace. You had the beginnings of these kinds of things. All right, where groups of people were getting together, and people who didn't have capabilities of building a HTML file, understanding FTP, file transfer protocol, setting up, an account with some place where they could store their files. And then the average person had no clue. I mean, they didn't even know what email was. And so these places came along that made it real easy for you to just open an account and then use some kind of template right? And then they were all muscled out by basically the government, more or less, DARPA. DARPA created the internet. And then basically, like the government funded Google. Google pushed Yahoo out. Yahoo was the search engine. I mean, Yahoo was like everything. Yahoo had Yahoo Groups. Yahoo was the premier search engines. There were other search engines, But I mean, Yahoo was the king. And Yahoo had branched in everything. Yahoo had music. Yahoo had all kinds of stuff on Yahoo. And then Yahoo had website hosting and all that. And then it just fragmented. And what's left of Yahoo is now you got Yahoo News. You got the Yahoo name being used, branded by some other companies that like bought out all the pieces of it. And it's nothing. It's a shell of what it once was. And so anyway, all that stuff laid the groundwork, all the founders. It's like Hayes compatible modems, is out of business. You can't, the thing that made the internet possible, the company that made the internet possible went out of business before the internet peaked. I've talked about that before. And then browsers like Netscape, right? Which also had built into it a program where you could create, it had Netscape Mail, and it had an HTML program so you could design a website in it. So it's like it was a browser, it was an internet, design program. You had Netscape Mail, and then I think there might have been a communicator or some other kind of thing, that was tied in with that. So all of these things, it's like I used to like better than that, even though I was always on Macs, I used to like Microsoft had a program that had mail and all this stuff. And then they just discontinued it for the Mac. The Mac made it no longer available. And I liked it much better than Mac Mail. But I can't, unless I went back to Windows, I couldn't get it. And at this point, I've been so far, 20 years away from it. I mean, there was a lot of stuff like that. There was Web TV. I had a Web TV channel. That was like Microsoft was involved in that. It was called Web TV in like the late 90s. And that was cool. And so what it allowed you to, and I had the first internet fireplace that played like music. I had shows on there, and it was really cool. And it was designed so that the web would go to TV. And we used to have these talk shows on, and, and I was one of the ones who was pushing, and I was saying, people aren't going to want to sit in front of this thing like I'm doing right now. There, you've got a TV. The TV screen is bigger because then you still had cathode ray monitor. Well, Indigenous Day doesn't mean that we don't have the rat race going on outside. But cathode ray tubes monitors were like huge. They were like this wide. This isn't the length, not the screen. The screen size was only about this big. But I mean, they were boxy. Young people don't know that. I mean, you have to, if you're 30 years old, you may not have really seen a cathode ray tube. Right? It's the year 2021. So, you were like 9 years old. Flat screen started coming along pretty quick. I mean, you might, 30ish, but people in their mid to late 20s might not even know what a cathode ray tube is, or they know what it is maybe, but kind of. Oh, my grandpa had one of those, or there's one of those in our garage, some hoarder. But yeah, it was a pain in the ass, and those screens, they weren't big. So the idea was you had this big TV, so the whole idea was movement to the TV. But then once, the HD TV, the LED plasmas and all this backlit, blah, 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 all these screens started to be developed. Then that changed, that whole concept. And then you had the iMac, the all-in-one. But like I was showing from that Hall & Oates album, which I could still bring up, you can see the kind of cathode ray tube thing. John Oates, the guy with the guitar, he's looking at this thing, and it's kind of looks like an early, almost the Mac type of thing, but that's it's a cathode ray tube. It's a computer monitor, because it had this tube, cathode ray tube in it. Just happened to work out interesting into this discussion that I happen to have that there. Things like are like that. And that's why everything is everything's weird, man. It's all weird. There's too many things that are like that. So yeah, so the internet as we knew it, it's dead. And so big tech, and this all feeds into, it's funny, because Tattoo had sent me that thing, and I talked about this yesterday. And now we're getting into this idea, this pyramid of a power structure, and I'm just using this as a construct to explain, and this also really kind of ties into this thing, all right? About I don't follow politics anymore. It's bull. I'd rather have a beer and bowl than watch the news. And so the idea is that, and I'm trying to get this across to people and drive this home today, is the top of the pyramid, just using it as a visual, a geometric visual of how the hierarchical structure of power is in the world, and particularly in the U.S., but in the world, Western civilization is. It's quite different in communist countries and other third world nations. All right. This is like the former Western civilization, former United States type of thing that are still hanging on to these constructs. Right. And will indefinitely hang on to certain aspects of them just for control purposes. In other words, to maintain order, right? Instead of having things just be like insane chaos. You see these things on YouTube sometime. And there's people running all over the place, crazy in these countries, right? And it's so, we still have this, they're keeping up the illusion. That's what the media is and politics is to keep up this illusion to prevent chaos. All right. That's all it is. It's an illusion of a hierarchical power structure. And the power structure that they present is the complete opposite of what the power structure really is. The power structure that's presented is that there are Democrats, Republicans, maybe some libertarians, Greens, and stuff like that. And there's politicians, and there are elections, and there's a place called Washington, D.C., and there's, and you vote, and these people make laws, and then there are police, and then there's military that does this, and there's the Federal Reserve, and there's Wall Street. These are all illusions. all right, that give you order, right? The financial markets are set up. It's an illusion to make you think that that piece of paper or that credit card or that those ledgers you have digitally you see when you go online and look at your banking account or whatever, brokerage account, whatever it might be, that's real, okay? But it's not, all right? It's just ledgers, right? They're just numbers. The military industrial complex is there to say that you better believe in all that stuff or else, right? And you better, and this whole political scene is like to give you this feeling that there's somebody in charge and that you have a say in it too, that it's not a dictatorship. Oh, that's the picture that they paint. All right. Well, that's like, there's nothing, it's like the farthest from the truth, just like the internet's dead. There's not like billions of websites anymore. Now there's billions of people who are on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter, right? And the same people are probably, and many of them are all on all three, but they don't have individual websites. They don't know what HTML is. They don't even know something as basic as A space href equals. Do you know what I mean? They don't know what, bracket, forward slash, backward slash. They don't understand any of that, right? And so they have to use a template, and they have to go to Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube in order to do a thing. They can't even do this, what I'm doing. Like they can't, move, create this. They don't know how to do that. There's a very limited amount of people that have the ability to understand enough about how things work that they can utilize it. That was like my message to the guys who were behind locals I was trying to talk to before. I wasn't talking to the average person because they would have no idea what I would be trying to get across. About the GUI, the graphical user interface, and, but anyway. So what is the real power pyramid? What is that? What does that look like? What is the construct in real life? All right. If it's not, like the back of the dollar bill, right? Where you've got, the all-seeing eye, right? But I mean, the idea that, that fiat currency is real, which it's not. And that B, that there's somehow a power structure, right? That is based upon a political system and a financial system and a military system, right? I mean, that's the idea that you've been fed. Everything you know is wrong. That's why I have that, up there or over there. See, I see things complete opposite. Over there. Everything you know is wrong. Right? But you don't know what you don't know. That's there. Freedom is fun. That's a whole different story. We're not going to get into it. And game over, yeah. Well, that's already happened. So the real power structure, all right, is big tech, right? I mean, it's obvious. Big tech is in charge. They're at the top of the pyramid. They are above everyone. They are above the military. They are above the bankers. There's these people here that got this conspiracy, Illuminati, central bankers, European bankers, the Bilderbergers, or all this nonsense. It's like, yeah, all that stuff's true. You know, there are Bilderbergers, you know, the Rothschilds and Rockefellers and the Davos set and the World Economic Forum. I talk about it all the time. This old world order power people, they really exist, you know, I mean, and they're really doing things, but they're not at the top of the pyramid. And that really pisses them off. And I said this a long time ago. In fact, it was probably 2 years ago, even maybe longer, but at least 2 years ago, I presented this once, I think on Minds. And the idea is that there's a war going on that the average person has no idea. It's not a war between countries, all right? You know, it's not it's not anything that anybody thinks, right? It's a war. There's a war going on between the real power struggle. And I don't really even think that there's a chance anymore. In other words, I think it's game over. Is that big tech is in charge. See, once the banks and the military industrial complex and the old world order opened themselves up to technology, you know, even like the concept of even Bitcoin, which I just touched on briefly yesterday. I was trying to explain, like, nobody even understands the beginnings of that and why and how it exists and what it's really all about. There's all these people talking about it and stuff, and people own it and stuff, but they really don't understand it. And and the purpose of it and how it was created and all that. They make that seem like it's a mystery, some mysterious Japanese guy. Not so. The idea here is you have to get through your skulls, because everything you know is wrong, and what you don't know, you don't know. So you have to think, you know, it's not about think outside the box. It's like you got to think, you know, different. Like, you know, like Steve Jobs, the old agency, Lee Clow, I think might have came up with that line, you know, the ad agency originally that Jobs hired. Think different. Once they allowed the bankers, and this began, you know, back at Y2K, you know, because the Y2K, you know, is where the bankers opened themselves up to the coders, because they had that problem where they thought there was going to be this massive, you know, just crash of the system, because when 1999, you know, December 31st, 1999 turned over to 00. Because, see, they foolishly only had 00. You know, it's like even today, people are still doing it again, but they don't care because it's like, you know, 79 years away. Of course, you know, we only have another, you know, short period of time before, you know, this thing novas anyway, so it doesn't matter. But the idea is, you know, people still say today's date is 10/11/21 instead of 10/11/2021. And so all Y2K was, for those who just don't remember it or weren't alive for it or cognizant of it or forgot about it, was that all these banks, because this was mainly a financial thing, that was the fear, you know, everything's about money, follow the money, right? They were afraid that there was going to be this major, like, cataclysm collapse of the whole financial system, because, and money would just disappear and vanish, you know, from computers and banking systems, because the 00, would have taken the accounts back to the year 1900 instead of 2000. You see? Because the date would have been, 12/31/99. And suddenly you would have when it would have crossed over and turned to 1100 in the mind of the computer, well, the mind, but from that standpoint, it would have been 1900. And that's what Y2K was all about. They were scared shitless that everything was going to go back to 1900, which means your money might just completely vanish, right? Or all these things, everything would be completely out of whack. Because it's a computer, and what does a computer know? Then there was no reason why a computer would have a concept of the century, a millennial change, right? 2000 from 1000, or 19 to 2, you see what I mean? And so what they did was that's when they let the coders come in. First time they opened up their secrets to the tech companies. And so the tech guys came in and they got to see the inside workings of all the banking system globally. And as the march of time went on, and let's just deal with the banking system for right now. And I know guys who were, worked for banks in over in Europe. Like big, the big banks, right? I'm not going to mention names. And, these guys made lots of money, became millionaires. But this is after Y2K. So then after that thing didn't, and it basically a lot of it, there were problems. People just weren't aware of it. And they did, forestall a lot of the potential problems there were. But then they realized that they needed, as the internet, stuck, right, and got over the hurdle of the crash, the internet, bubble, after it burst and then it rose, right? Well, then the bankers needed to get the coders in for security. And so, and that was their second mistake, from a power standpoint. In other words, big tech now had access, not only had access before big tech was really big tech, right? I'm sorry, my mustache is itchy. Big tech had access through Y2K to the banking system and government, and government computers as well. We'll get into that too, because they had the same potential problems coming up. But then it was the problem of internet security. And so who is going to make your system secure? Big tech, the coders. All right, the big tech companies. That's why when you talk to a coder and, it's a totally different conversation you have than what you see these people who think they know what they're talking about media and things like that. The media talking about politics, government, banking, even like Bloomberg, people on Bloomberg, these young people who are like talking heads on Bloomberg, financial networks and stuff. They don't really, they don't get it. They don't know. So big tech is at the top of that pyramid, power pyramid, because the coders know all. They're the all-seeing eye. Okay? All right? At the top now. See, this is completely different. That's what I'm saying. Everything you know is wrong. This is very, very important show. What I'm trying to get across. This is years of work. All right? And stuff I've been telling you, I'm giving you right now. And there's nobody talking about this. Nobody. All right? And you've been wondering what that everything you know is wrong thing is meant for all this time. And now I'm telling you. Okay? And you don't know what you don't know. And why you should be wearing this shirt. Okay? So big tech is at the top of the pyramid. They control everything. All right? Everything. All right? Code is everything. And you say, now, and there's a space between the apex of the pyramid, all right? And then down here at the bottom, there's all this space in between, okay? Well, I'm not going to talk about the space in between just yet. I'm going to talk about the bottom. Who's at the bottom of the pyramid? Okay? The politicians. The politicians. And that's the part that you don't get. They're nothing. They're nothing. All right? They're not even like in the game. For them, it is game over. It's all an illusion to you, the media. This is a pretension to keep chaos off the streets. That's all it is. And it's why big tech allows it to happen. Okay? Big tech is just allowing you to perceive the world as if it still is the way it was. Okay? Because they don't want people just running rampant in the streets like wild people. They want people to believe that this money system works, that this military is in control, that these politicians, are in charge, and that you're electing someone who's going to do something that they say they're going to do. All right? Big tech is allowing that. Big tech is in charge. They're the top rung. Okay? They control the world. Not the bankers, not the Bilderbergers, not the Illuminati, not the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers. And that's happy horse shit, man. They're rich. Those are wealthy people, wealthy old world money. Okay? Old kings and stuff like that. They're not big tech. All right? They opened their computers, their doors to big tech. Some doofus just left and realized. See, people don't even fucking understand what I'm trying to tell you. Because your whole life depends on this. All right? You don't even fucking understand the world, people. I'll tell you. It annoys me to no fucking end how stupid people are. Anyway. So, the military-industrial complex, what is that? That's just a bunch of military contractors, people trying to make a buck selling weapons. Okay? They could be selling frickin' shirts. They don't fucking care. It's about making money. All right? They're not in charge of the world. All right? They're not in charge of anything. The military is powerless compared to big tech. Big tech is in charge, is still at the top. Because the military-industrial complex, all right, unfortunately for them, years ago, let big tech in to code and to work their security. Okay? See, the big tech is the all-seeing eye. You don't understand that. Most people just don't get it. And so when these people are looking and going, oh, and I want to have, and they're going to vote for, they have rallies and politics, and in 2022 we're going to change this. And it's like, what are you going to do? Elect another catfish or scum sucker down at the bottom of the pyramid to put the rocks dirty, scummy rocks of the aquarium in their mouth and swish them around and take the scum off them and then spit them back out. That's basically what the President of the United States and the Congress does. They're just like scum. They're like bottom feeder, scum suckers. You don't get it, do you? The bankers think they're in charge. Money. There is no money. There's no money anymore. What money? It's a digital ledger in the cloud, controlled by big tech. They could make it vanish anytime they want to. You see? Facebook, this past week just pulled the plug from the internet just to fuck with people, man. They were to scrub some stuff, off of some stupid whistleblower, but basically just to show people what I'm trying to tell you. They go like, we could just unplug the whole thing. See, they weren't down. I tried to say this yesterday. Facebook didn't go down. Facebook unplugged Facebook. Instagram, WhatsApp. They unplugged from the internet and said, this is our fucking world, man. All right? Fuck you. We'll unplug you. And you can't communicate with each other. All those businesses, find us on Facebook. Right? People have those little bugs on the bottom of every ad. Facebook, Twitter, right? Well, guess what? How much business do you think was lost that day? People who are stores and businesses tied into Facebook. Facebook just pulled the plug on everything, saying, no, we don't fuck with us. Get that? What's that girl doing in Congress? In that hearing? Yank, right? There is no world without us. You see? There is no world without us. We control the code. We control everything. All right? It's like this thing I tried to, I've played for you before. And we'll skip ahead to it. Where is it? I just saw it a second ago. You got to hear this before the show ends. Okay. Now listen to this.
We repeat, there is nothing wrong with your television set. You are about to participate in a great adventure. You are about to experience the awe and mystery which reaches from the inner mind to...
Wait a second. Here it is.
Make it flutter. We can change the focus to a soft blur or sharpen it to crystal clarity. For the next hour, sit quietly and we will control all that you see and hear. We repeat, there is...
Listen to this. Here it is, right here. Listen what he's saying.
Quietly and we will control all that you see and hear.
Sit quietly. Listen again.
Clarity. For the next hour, sit quietly and we will control all that you see and hear.
Sit quietly and we will control all that you see and hear. And that's what Facebook did the other day. They pulled the plug. You see? And that's what and YouTube could do that too. So sit quietly and we will control all that you see and hear. That's the media machine now, which encompasses everything from broadcast to what you call social media. All right? That's the top of the pyramid. That's big tech. All right? Sit quietly and we will control all that you see and hear. Do you understand? No bankers, no Alex Jones, Bilderbergers, no guys with some big owl and doing it, no satanic, crazy. Yeah, all that stuff goes on, but it's nothing. They're bottom feeders. They're scum suckers. All right? They're at the lowest rung. Right? We've unleashed a monster. All right? A behemoth. Big tech is the all-seeing eye. And they control everything we see and hear. They control the financial networks, and they control the military-industrial complex. All right? They control the CIA, the NSA, and the politicians are at the lowest rung. They're at the bottom. They're on their bellies. Donald Trump is on his stomach, rolling on his stomach. Do you understand? Dementia Joe is, well, yeah, it's obviously he's, rolling on his belly. He wants to be petted on the belly like a dog. He's so lost. But doesn't matter who it is. I don't care who they are. What senator, they're nobodies. They're nothing. And people don't understand that. They just don't get it. That's why there's nobody watching this show. Because they don't want people to know that. They want people to believe that everything is the same as it was before. And it's not. Everything you know is wrong. And all they're doing, and big tech is a part of it, is allowing these people to keep this charade alive so that there isn't chaos. But it's just a matter of time before it no longer matters. Once they have this full system in place, then it won't matter. Okay? Because people will be controlled. And that's what the totalitarian state is all about. And that's why we're moving so fast in that direction. Look at Australia. Australia is the test case where they're testing it. You see? Haven't you thought about how bizarre it is what's going on in Australia? You're right. And then like the South African thing, which very few people even any clue what happened in South Africa. See, South Africa was the test case of anarchy and chaos. All right? To see what happens if they just let it go. And if you were one of those people that got a chance to watch those videos, I don't know, they might have scrubbed those from the net already. South Africa was was there. This is the guys at the top watching. All right, this was like a live experiment. People lost it because they don't even care about human life. Remember, I told you about that. People lost their lives. People are starving. They basically, at one point, it was considered South Africa was considered like a failed country, right? And so they used that. That was their test model for what would happen if they just let it all go. And they saw it, and those of us who watched it saw it happen. It just like completely. This just was 2 months ago, a month and a half ago. And what's going on in Australia over the past couple months is a controlled authoritarianism to see how they can control that chaos. All right. And what's going on in the UK and in the US right now is the lessons they learned from South Africa and they're learning from Australia, and they're adding in some other elements to it. And that's what's going on right now. But the ultimate goal, and people don't know this, and there's guys, people like, you look at guys like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, these billionaire guys who, and stuff, and you think, well, they're clued in on it. They go to Davos. They know what's going on. No, they don't. No, they don't. People do not know this. Everything you know is wrong. You don't know what you don't know. The world, the way you see it right now, is not what what it appears to be at all. And anyone who's involved, the slightest bit, who even believes that there's such things as elections, politicians, Congress, a United States of America, Western civilization, they don't frickin' exist anymore. They're just being put up in front of you, all right, temporarily to prevent chaos. That's all it is. Until these guys can basically solidify absolute, control of the system. But the people in charge are big tech. They're above the bankers. They're above, And so, it's so funny, when I watch these people, like these so-called conspiracy theorist type of people and stuff, and they're like pushing, trying to say, oh, such and such is this, and these bankers and these people and that. No. You got it all wrong. Everything you know is wrong. So I'm telling you, get my fucking book, wear my fucking shirts, because you got to get, that's how you get the word out to people. But I guess it really doesn't fucking matter anymore, because freedom is fun, is like what I'm trying to tell you. So I found my freedom. I'm doing these shows. I don't make a dime on this, and obviously nobody's buying anything. But the point of the matter is, I'll keep doing it. I'm trying to get this message across to you. And ultimately, the idea of how you can have, freedom. All right. But you got to break away from this whole thing right now, because it is an illusion. It is fucking nuts, man. And if you want to have fun for the rest of your life before the event, you ought to heed my words, and you ought to listen to what I'm saying. You maniacs, man. I'll tell you. It's crazy.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning. Good happy Indigenous Day. Go to my website. Go to my local site. All right, go to TonyCaravanLive.com. Click on the link to the locals page. Go to ROCKFLUX.com. Get the Then What print version of my book. Great solar stuff. You better get that. You better go take the link to that. That's available through my website as well. And you better get yourself some of that stuff. You have no idea you are going to be needing that stuff. You have no fucking idea.